Imagine only being able to travel the wide expanse of the West by horse and buggy. It is a lot of country to cover. What about if you are a rancher in Texas? You have to get your cows to different areas of the United States during long, exhausting, and often dangerous cattle drives. If you were a farmer during the late 19th century in Texas, you most likely were selling to local merchants or trading among the city or town you lived in. If you were a merchant, you were only able to sell, trade, or buy from other nearby towns. Now enter the railroad into Texas. Ranchers now can transport their cattle by way of train to different areas of the United States. This not only expanded the market in cattle and meat sales, but it bypassed the problem that began to arise with fencing land in Texas and different areas cowboys were beginning to face with the cattle drives. Perhaps the best example of this are the Kansas towns like Abilene and the infamous Dodge City. From the mid 1860s to the mid 1880s, Texas cowboys drove herds of longhorn cattle to these towns where they were loaded onto trains for shipment to stockyards and slaughterhouses in cities like Chicago. Farmers are now able to sell their goods to people in the East, and products that were once not available to the West were coming in from the East. Merchants were now able to sell a wide array of goods to their customers, and customers were able to order from merchants with a much faster turnaround rate. Think Amazon Prime versus snail mail. Because there was so much work to be done for the construction of the railroad, jobs were now also available. Jobs for local laborers, but many for immigrants from other countries, such as China, Ireland, and others. So, not only was the United States becoming very multicultural, so was Texas now. In addition to all these changes, some other things were going on as well. What time is it anyway? If you asked this question in 1880, you might have received 5 different answers in the same city. The railroads literally invented standard time. Before time was standardized, each locality set the time of day to suit its needs. Early timekeeping was based on the sun's midday position, which established high noon. As a result, one town's noon might be a neighboring town's 12:15 or 12:43, and so on. The difference in high noon between East and West Chicago was 67 seconds. Before railroads, travel over long distances was infrequent and slow at best. Trains often shrank travel times from days to hours on some lines. When the first rail line began to cross the continent, timekeeping between communities was difficult. Maintaining accurate schedules was next to impossible with so many time changes along the routes. Something had to be done about a nation suddenly brought closer together by this fast, new convenience. Following the opening of the first transcontinental rail line in 1869, the railroads endured well over 100 local times throughout the country. A person traveling from Maine to California was required to change his watch no less than 20 times. In 1872, at a meeting of railroad superintendents in St. Louis, an organization was created to develop the implement standardized time, known as the General Time Convention. The group adopted a plan which separated the nation into 4 specific time zones. The 4 meridians are approximately on the longitudes of Philadelphia, Memphis, Denver, and Fresno. They became known as the Eastern, Central, and Mountain and Pacific time zones, respectively. Finally, on November 18, 1883, the railroads in the nation adopted Standard Time as we know it today. The transition was relatively smooth, and other than some rather colorful commentary by folks who saw Standard Time as contrary to nature, the nation embraced the change. Newspaper accounts of the day ranged from supportive to humorous to belligerent oppositions. Even more amazing was the fact that standardized time was adopted without passage of any federal legislation. In fact, all branches of government cooperated with the change. It wasn't until 1918 that the standardized time was officially sanctioned by the federal government, when daylight savings time was adopted as part of the conservation measures during World War I. That fateful day in 1883 would forever change our lives and is a testament to the vision and planning of railroad managers, if not their high degree of influence on commerce in the nation. Standard time is now in use around the world. In addition to travel, it regulates television and radio broadcast across the nation.